Longer term, China may be much more important for the U.S., but is there a sense that getting the NAFTA renegotiated and off the plate so that this White House could focus on China is part of what's happening here?
Well, I do think that this is part of bringing NAFTA to a close so that the president can focus on, the real story, which is China. And with the midterms coming up, I believe that having NAFTA out there with tariffs, it's going to affect the enthusiasm of President Trump's base. So there's a big incentive for the U.S. to get it before the November elections. On the other hand, in Mexico, they want to do it before December 1 because that's when the new president takes office. So there's a lot of pressure to get NAFTA out of the way so that the president can focus on China. And there's a political calculation here that China plays a lot better in the heartland than NAFTA does.
Could those two political reasons in America and in Mexico lead to a bilateral? I mean, there's this new threat that somehow Canada will be frozen out of the three-way deal and there'll be a two-way trade deal on the table.
I think it's hard to understand the logic of having two bilaterals. Right now, we run the risk of, having a Mexico and U.S., even though there isn't a bilateral agreement. But my sense is that this is a little bit of pressure on Canada. They're using a little bit of leverage because Mexico and the U.S. are negotiating better than the U.S. and Canada. Since about 4 or 5 months ago, it's just, for some reason, the relationship began to deteriorate. And I really doubt that Canada is just going to buckle under and say, OK, whatever you and Mexico negotiate will come in. I think they have also some petitions of their own. So it'll be interesting to see, but it's not going to be over if there's a handshake with Mexico. That doesn't mean that NAFTA has been saved. We still have to get Canada in, and then it has to go through Parliament, the Congress, and the Mexican Congress.
We're now hearing from sources that one of the sticking points at the moment is that largely everything on auto rules and auto content rules has been agreed between the U.S. and Mexico. But one thing could be that the U.S. is still pushing for those cars that don't meet that criteria to be taxed at 25%, up to 25% tariff under the Section 232 rule. What are your thoughts on that?
These rules of origin, I think we're getting pretty close, but when you add something like that, I think the unintended consequence will be that it will be very difficult to make cars in the U.S. and you won't be able to export from the U.S. We export over 1 million cars a year. I don't see how we can export if we're using all of our higher costs.